Hi coaches, it's Erin, the hardest working girl in health coaching, and I call myself that because I'm here with you on Health Coach Radio talking about all topics pertinent to health coaching, but also I'm on the faculty of a health coaching school, Primal Health Coach Institute. I teach and mentor health coaches in our advanced coach training program, the Master Coach Certification Program, and I'm in the thick of all of that right now, which is why this topic of conversation was front of mind for me, because I just taught this to my advanced coaching students. Now, I think this might be a repeat topic. I might have covered this one a few years ago, but it's always good to bring it back. And we're not playing a repeat episode. I'm just recording it anew, unscripted riff on one of my favorite coaching techniques, which is the GAB Summary. GAB. If you know it, you love it. If you don't know it, you're about to love it. So let me just take you through what the GAB summary is. First of all, let's set the stage. This is in the context of a coaching conversation. Now, coaching conversations are client-led, and they're based in the principles of motivational interviewing, active listening, self-determination theory, and the like. If you don't know what any of those phrases mean, get you into a coach training course so you can be a skilled coach. But let me fill you in. We are guiding the client down a continuum toward autonomy and self-efficacy. Autonomy and self-efficacy. So autonomy is I do it myself. Self-efficacy is I have the tools, knowledge, and resources to do it myself. And I refer to this as client enlightenment, which is a step on the continuum that's just a nudge past empowerment. Some of those words are a little woo, empowerment, enlightenment, but think about it. Your client comes to you with a health goal. They come to you feeling lost and overwhelmed and confused. They come to you, the health coach, seeking assistance, leaning in for support from you, guidance, education, accountability, all of the things that coaches offer. Gosh, we're so lucky to do the jobs that we do. And our goal is to get the client to graduate out of our care with autonomy and self-efficacy on board. So every single conversation we have with our clients in the context of the larger coaching relationship moves them down the continuum toward this graduation goal. You might have a 12-week program, you might have a 6-month program, you might have a year-long program, multi-year program, you might have a membership, you might have a 21-day group challenge. There's lots and lots of models of coaching in the context of sort of your product suite. I actually have a conversation coming up about that in a little while. I had some listener questions come in. By the way, you can submit listener questions to me at podcast@primalhealthcoach.com. So in the context of a personalized, high-touch, let's call it one-on-one health coaching relationship where you and the client are working together in partnership through a long-term coaching relationship, and these coaching conversations you have, let's call them weekly. That's a good cadence, typically. A weekly check-in of some kind, a weekly coaching call. That's generally the industry standard, but there's lots of ways to orchestrate your business and your coaching practice. Probably another episode I could do here. Let me write that down real quick. So in these weekly coaching calls, you're having client-directed conversations toward process goals. Okay, let's talk about process goals. I just want you to recognize that I'm pronouncing that the American way, because even though I'm Canadian, I'd prefer to say process. But I've learned over the years that if I say process, it doesn't go over that well. So it's easier for me to just speak American. So process goals, however you want to pronounce it, process or process. A process goal is the little small goal that when added up, these small goals get us to the outcome. The outcome goal is what the client might share with you in your discovery call, your consultation, in your intake form when you bring on a new client. I want to lose 50 pounds. I want to get a personal best on my ultra marathon. I want to lose the dad bod. I want to improve my journey through menopause. Like whatever your specialty is, you have an expertise and people are working with you because of your expertise. They have a desired goal that's in your wheelhouse. And they've given you their outcome goal, the big goal at the top of the staircase. And we walk up the staircase with them in these tiny incremental steps to the outcome. That's why we need a long-term relationship with our clients. Things that we are really meaningful don't happen quickly. We need to put some time in. We need to put in these little process steps. And so every coaching conversation you have, let's call it this weekly coaching call, is moving you up the staircase to the outcome goal. It's awesome. I just love what we get to do. It's so great what we get to do. It's so fun. So you meet with your client for your weekly coaching call. They set the session intention. This week, what I'd like to work on is this: getting more steps, eating more protein, going to bed earlier, something like that. There's all kinds of interesting process goals and intentions the client can come with. I had an example of one of my students was working with a client, and the client's goal was to get her thank you cards written because she was procrastinating on the thank you cards, and that was making her feel stressed, and she was delaying all gratification, all self-care until the thank you cards were written. So getting the thank you cards out of the way was actually her health goal for the week. Isn't that amazing? Okay, so your client comes with their session intention. This is called the session priority prompt. What feels like the most important thing to work on this week? Or what's front of mind for you to tackle today? What feels like the most important thing for us to talk about? There's a million ways to ask the session priority prompt. And you know what? You could ask your buddy ChatGPT for 100 examples of session priority prompts, and your robot would deliver lots of ways to kick off the coaching conversation. Don't forget, once we get the session priority prompt, we want to move into what's called the value prompt, which is, why is this the most important thing to work on this week? We have to connect to values from jump. If it's not important to the client, if they're not intrinsically motivated, the whole thing falls down. Why does that feel like the most important thing? From there, we move into goal setting. By the way, this, what I'm walking you through here, I call this the coaching conversation framework, and I believe I've done an episode on this a long time ago. Maybe I'll bring this one back, but hey, just buckle up because I'm giving it to you right now. There's a lot of component parts here, but once we get out of the session priority prompt, the value prompt, then we get into the exploration part of the conversation. This is your motivational interview, shall we say, where you're asking evocative questions to drive the conversation forward and get more information about this client's intention to start to move them toward the goal setting part of the session, which is ultimately the goal, is to set some kind of goal. The goal is to set a goal. The goal of the session is to set a goal for the client to agree to for the next week. Now, when I say agree to, I need to claw that language back because that's not accurate. That's just the word that came out of my mouth during this unscripted riff. In fact, you and your client are co-creating the goal. It's the client's stated intention, and then you and the client are going to come together to develop a goal that answers the client's intention and moves them a step closer to their outcome goal, and you're facilitating this goal setting conversation. So quite frankly, the goal setting part of the conversation is the sort of the grand finale. Okay, after all that exploration, I understand what your schedule looks like. I understand why this is important to you. I understand things you've tried before, what works and doesn't work for you. I think it's time for us to work on setting a goal for this week so you and the client will work together to set this goal. I've done an episode not too long ago on the SMART plus values goal setting approach. SMART goals plus values, SMART goals plus V. There's a million ways to do goals, but I lean on the SMART goal framework because I think most of us know it. So specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time specific. And in that episode, I mentioned that to me, specificity and attainability are quite honestly the most important parts of that acronym. Specificity because it leaves no ambiguity at all. The client knows exactly what the plan is. And I think the attainability is the second crucial factor in the SMART goal framework, because adherence ends up being the make or break in a health coaching relationship. Will the client do it? If they won't do it, it's not a good goal, which we'll get to in a second. So you get to this goal setting session, please review back under the SMART plus values goal setting podcast episode from a few weeks back to learn how to do that. You and the client create the goal together. Okay? That's really important. I want to say that one more time. You and the client are creating the goal. In fact, I would say the client is in the driver's seat of the goal setting conversation and you are in the passenger seat. Maybe I might have mentioned this anecdote in the SMART Goal podcast episode, but I used to be in the Army, the Canadian Army. And you had to do a lot of different qualifications. You had to do like weapons qualification. And I was a medic, so I had to do like emergency medical responder qualification. And there's lots of little additional qualifications you can get. And one of mine was I was a driver in the Army. Well, we had an ambulance. We had to learn how to drive the ambulance because I was a medic. So in my driver training in the military, in the Canadian military anyway, you had the driver and the co-driver. You always have a co-driver next to the driver because the co-driver's job is to navigate, help facilitate the care and attention of the vehicle, but also the co-driver's job is to keep the driver engaged so they don't fall asleep or get distracted behind the wheel. So if you're the co-driver, you can't nod off. You are kind of partly responsible for getting the vehicle to its destination. And that's how I want you to think about the coach. You're a really important co-driver. You're not just sitting in the passenger seat having a snooze. You're literally a critical part of the driver-co-driver partnership. But the client is the driver. They kind of outrank you just a little tiny bit when it comes to goal setting because it's their goal, not yours. It's their goal, not yours. Okay, so technically, getting to the goal is the finale of the coaching conversation, but it's not a great place to end the coaching conversation. And that's where, at long last, the GAB summary comes in. Now, I teach the GAB summary to my master coach students, not because they have to learn it. It's not required as part of your coach training, but I teach it to them because it's such a powerful tool. It's a powerful tool. It's not necessary for our students to learn it. It's not a crucial part of the national board certification process because we are a nationally board recognized educational institution. It's not part of that. I teach it because I think it's a freaking valuable coaching tool. And I want you to know it too and practice it in your coaching conversations. You're going to love it. Okay. So GAB summary, GAB. So remember, you've come through the whole entire coaching conversation. You've got the goal set, the accountability plan figured out. It's all aligned to the client's stated session priority, and it's connected to their values. We are in a good place to end the session. And the GAB summary is how you'll end the session. So you start with the G. G stands for goal summary. And here's what I recommend. You would say to your client, okay, Bob, I'm loving the sound of this goal. Do me a favor, recite back to me our goal for this week. And you want Bob, your client, to give every tiny little detail of this goal because remember, the S of the SMART goal, specificity, was one of my most crucial factors. So you've gotten into the absolute weeds on this goal. You left no stone unturned. It's very, very, very specific. You went granular AF. So you want Bob to recite back to you all the granularities of this goal that you and he co-created. And you want Bob to recite back to you the agreed upon accountability plan. Maybe I'm going to text you my Strava data so you can see my training runs, or I'm going to text you pictures of my food so you can see what I ate for breakfast. Whatever accountability plan you and Bob came to. Once again, go back to the goal setting podcast to get more details on that. So the G in GAB summary stands for goal summary, goal. And I really recommend having the client recite the goal back to you. And the reason for that is because you want the client to be very clear on it, A. B, it further positions the client as an equal partner in the relationship. You're not the boss. The client is not the subordinate. It's not your goal. It's their goal. So we want them to be very clear on it and to recite it back to you with all the details and enthusiasm, hopefully. We move on to the A. The A in GAB summary stands for assess confidence. So here's what you'll say. Great. Okay, Bob, on a scale of 1 to 10, how confident are you that you can achieve this goal that you designed this week? On a scale of 1 to 10, how confident are you? And Bob will say some number between 1 and 10. Let's talk about this. Probably Bob is going to say a high number, 8, 9, or 10. And the reason I say probably is because it was Bob's idea. It was Bob's idea. Bob came in with the session priority prompt. Bob shared why this was important to him. Bob helped you make the goal. Why wouldn't Bob be confident? If Bob wasn't confident in the goal, he wouldn't have made it with you. He would have made a different goal. Do you know what I mean? This is why we get to the end of the coaching conversation and there's high confidence almost every time. So Bob will say, I'm an 8 out of 10, a 9 out of 10, or a 10 out of 10. Now, when Bob says that, what you want to say back is, that's pretty high confidence, Bob. Just out of curiosity, why did you say 9 out of 10 and not 5? So why did you say this high confidence number and not this lower confidence number? Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking that sounds counterintuitive. I don't want Bob thinking about the 5 out of 10. I want him to be proud of the 9 out of 10, but hear me out. Why did you say 9 instead of 5 out of 10? Bob will also be taken aback by that question. He'll say, oh, well, I'm excited to do it, actually. I'm totally excited. I know it's going to move the needle. I'm ready. I've got the time. I've got the ingredients. I've got the mental bandwidth. He's going to give you all the reasons why he can do it. This is called change talk. You want your client sharing change talk, all the reasons why he can do it. Now, if you had said, why did you say 9 out of 10 and not 10 out of 10, Bob? Bob's going to go, well, sometimes I'm lazy, and sometimes, the weather's bad. I don't want to go outside for a walk, and sometimes I sleep in. This is called sustain talk, all the reasons why he can't do it. So if you get nothing else out of this talk, please know the difference between change talk and sustain talk and how to nurture change talk. Instead of asking the client, why aren't you better? Ask the client, wow, why are you so confident and not less confident? And then they'll say, here's why I'm so confident. I'm so confident because X, Y, and Z. Amazing. Change talk. It's good. Now, pause, because I'm working under the assumption that your client has high confidence. 8, 9, or 10 out of 10 is high confidence. 5, 6, or 7 out of 10, we'd probably call that ambivalent confidence, just kind of meh. And 1, 2, 3, 4 out of 10, that's low confidence. Why would a client arrive at the end of the session with low or ambivalent confidence in the goal? The only reason this would happen is if the goal wasn't their idea or it wasn't connected to their values. Let's say the goal wasn't their idea. Let's say you created the goal and said, okay, Bob, I want you to take 20,000 steps every day this week. Okay, let's talk about that. You work with Bob to set the goal. Then you get to the end of the session. Bob, how confident on a scale of 1 to 10 are you that you can get 20,000 steps every day this week? And Bob's going to say, yeah, it's like a 3. Pretty low confidence because it was not his idea. It was not his idea. Bob knows what he can and can't do, what he will and won't do. He would have never set that goal for himself. This is why coaches don't set goals for clients. We don't do that. If the goal wasn't connected to Bob's values, if Bob doesn't find it important, you might end up with ambivalent confidence. So Bob says, I want to get more movement. Really, Bob, I want to get more movement. Why is that the most important thing to work on? He might say, because, I don't know, my doctor told me to. So we're at the top of the session again, getting that value prompt. That's not a personal value. That's not an intrinsic motivation for Bob. It's somebody told me I need to take more steps. So when you get to the end of the conversation, okay, Bob, on a scale of 1 to 10, how confident are you that you can do 20,000 steps this week? Bob might say 6. And the reason he might say 6 is because he thinks he can and should do it, but it's not important to him. So he's like, yeah, I can probably knuckle down and do it, I think. I'm just not that excited about it. If a client's not excited about it or ambivalent about it, they're probably not going to do it. They're probably going to come to the session next week and say, yeah, I didn't succeed. That's not a good feeling. So you want to always connect the goal to the client's values so they don't have ambivalence about it. And it has to be their idea so they're not low confidence about it. So that's why I say when you get to the end of the session, if you've played your cards right, your client has high confidence, 8, 9, or 10 out of 10. B, in GAB Summary, the B stands for barriers. Now you got to do this, friends. You have to identify what, if any, barriers could get in the way of the client achieving this goal. So literally ask that question. Cool. We got the change talk. We got the confidence, the change talk. We're on our way. Bob, what, if any, barriers could get in your way of achieving this goal? Now, sometimes the client is so gung-ho on this goal because it was their idea. They might say, nothing, I'm unstoppable. That would happen more often than you think. But if we've cultivated a really good partnership, the client might give you some options. They might say, well, I do have some meetings that run a little late, so I was planning on walking to my lunch break, but sometimes my 10 a.m. meeting runs late. And then, there is snow in the forecast, and I don't really love walking outside in the snow. Something like that. When your client gives you a barrier, you have to address it. The coaching conversation is not done till you've solved the barrier. Okay, so what if that meeting runs late? What will you do? What do you think will happen? Bob might say, well, I'll just postpone it to the next day. If my meeting on Tuesday runs late, I'll book my walk-in for Wednesday instead, because Wednesday I have a little bit more time. Maybe we'll do Wednesday instead of Tuesday because the chance of that meeting running late is pretty high. Great, we're going to readjust the goal. So instead of Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, we're going to go Monday, Wednesday, Thursday on the walk. Do you know what I mean? So we've adjusted the goal so there's fewer barriers. If it's weather, okay, what if it does snow, Bob? What will you do? And Bob might say, well, you know what? I live in Chicago. It snows every winter. I probably should just get used to it. So what I'll do is I will make sure to start dressing for winter because I know it's coming. Or Bob might say, well, we have a gym at the office. I'll just do my steps on the treadmill. Maybe it's not as fun, but I can put an audiobook on. So get into the absolute weeds on the barrier solution. It's part of the goal. We cannot end the session until we have a plan B, shall we say, for the barriers. Once you've gotten the barriers solved, you can say, great stuff, Bob. Can't wait to hear how it goes. Have a good day. Chat with you next week. The session ends. It's a great way to end a session. It's just a really nice way to end a session. Everybody feels confident. Everybody feels happy. Everybody knows what the plan is. You've addressed barriers ahead of time. I really do think barrier identification and solution is a huge part of a health coach's job because of the adherence piece. Adherence is one of the biggest factors that we help clients with. It's actually doing the things they say they want to do. That's our biggest role. I love that for us. Anyway, the GAB summary really buttons this up nicely. And I started this conversation by saying I would love it if you all listening were confident in conducting a client-led coaching conversation. This self-determination, motivational interviewing, positive psychology, coaching practice that you should have learned in your health coaching certification. I hope you learned how to coach. But even if you're still working on your coaching skills, adding a GAB summary at the end is going to elevate your game. I really recommend you try it. Let me know how it goes, and we'll see you next time.